Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Hi Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to episode 4.
Special Bhagavad Gita series of the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Yeah, to assist with those of you who are doing the Gita course or just help understand the Bhagavad Gita a bit more in general. So today's episode, we're going to talk about Sankhya.
Yeah, it's part of it's called spiritual science in the workbook. Lesson 4, spiritual science.
And in your workbook, you'll see knowing the field, the knowers of the field, and then it goes into the modes of material nature.
Yeah, and if you don't have a workbook, it's because you're not on a course. And if you're not on a course, you can get on a course next time.
Yeah.
Very simple. Just reach out. We'll probably run this a few times a year. Would you say, Gopal?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So.
But yeah, this spiritual science, very interesting topic to myself.
The workbook looks pretty cool as well.
Yes.
But yeah, Sankhya. Sorry.
Yeah, Sankhya is like a type of philosophy. Would you say? Is that?
Yeah, the Sankhya literally means to count. So it's the philosophy of counting and categorizing. Like what a scientist would do. They would put things in different categories and try and understand. And
yeah.
So Sankhya is like that, counting, understanding. And Krishna says earlier on in the Gita that Sankhya is also useful because when one understands the material world truly and understands the source of the material world, then one naturally engages in spiritual service and spiritual activity.
Yeah.
So it is useful.
It's really interesting. Like that idea of boiling down reality into like a more simplified set of elements. So you like count different aspects. And this is what he sort of Krishna gets into in chapter 13. The chapter is called Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, right? And it really just boils down our sort of physical reality into, is it 24 elements?
Yeah, depends how you count it, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Different authorities count it differently.
But this was the chapter that struck me because I've always had quite like an analytical way of viewing the universe. Do you know what I mean? Like what is this kind of world? Very, very interesting movies like The Matrix, where it kind of explains. If you've seen The Matrix, you know what I'm talking about. But if not, it's basically there's this main character, and he gets approached by these people, and they basically reveal to him that he's living within like a simulated world, and there's a reality beyond the reality that he's living in.
Yeah, everything's a computer simulation, isn't it?
Yeah, and so like really like chapter 13, knowing the field of activities, it kind of explains how this physical world is sort of like almost like a setup, like a video game. At least from my perspective, it's set up like a video game. So you have your main kind of.
You have your avatar.
Your avatar, which is
your body, and then the field of activities as we'll go into.
So like we've got this whole like physical sphere that we exist in, this realm. I like words like realm, but this dimension, this 3-dimensional realm, and we've got this physical body, which we can use to interact with this realm. So right now I've got my eyes, and they're looking at you, Gopal, and they're sort of gathering a lot of information, a lot of data. And they're pulling that data back into like the vision of like I'm seeing an image. It's getting like constructed on like the TV screen of my existence. Like I don't know how to explain it, but like I'm having a conscious experience based on like data that's being gathered by my eyes. And that's what I'm experiencing. Same thing with my ears. Like sound is going into them, smell. Like so we've got these different senses which gather data. Knowledge acquiring senses is what they're referred to in like most like Sankhya philosophy. So like it does work a lot like that. So we've got knowledge going in, and then we've got methods, we've got different senses which we can use to output information. So we've got our voice, we can speak. It's like a computer, inputs and outputs. We've got the voice, we've got our hands to like grab things, our legs to move, and then we've got like the private parts which have their own
Yeah, it
sort
sounds
of.
good there. Kamindriyas and Gyanindriyas.
Mm.
Senses for acquiring knowledge and senses for action.
So I don't know. Maybe we should, because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he so at the beginning of chapter 13, Arjuna is like asking Krishna, like, can you explain what this world's all about? Then he's like, he basically inquires. I don't know if you've got the verse. I haven't got it here.
Oh, okay, in chapter 13.
Yeah, the text 1 and 2.
Yeah, you have to forgive me as I'm flicking through.
It's cool.
Text 1. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, which is nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge."
So now I guess Arjuna's. I was always curious. Maybe you know, but like it seems like so in the Bhagavad Gita so far, Krishna's revealed all this knowledge, and then he's shown Arjuna this form of the universe, and Arjuna's just had this like unbelievable complex vision before him, and then he gets explained a bit about devotional service, and then Arjuna's kind of asking like, okay, like, can you explain this world and how it works? Like, I wonder if it was related to him seeing the universal form, or is there any relevance to the flow of the Gita? Why now Arjuna's asking this?
I'm sure there's a few reasons. I mean, one thing I've heard about the Bhagavad Gita is, like we said before, the middle 6 chapters are the most important because Krishna directly talks about giving service and love to him and achieving perfection like that. Then the last part of the Gita also emphasis on understanding the material world, and by understanding it, having detachment from it, because to really give one's love, one also has to cultivate a type of detachment from materialism. Like if I'm holding my phone and I want to pick up the Bhagavad Gita, I first have to put the phone down in order to pick up the Gita. So these last 6 chapters are to that end, and Arjuna asks questions also for our benefit, so we can more properly understand.
Yeah,
he's a good student. Arjuna's, he's asking different questions. He's wants to really understand the matter. Yeah. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is not for those who are just in for blind faith or just want to naively follow something, but it's for someone who really wants to think about and understand. Like, is it Morpheus? What's the name of the guy in the Matrix?
Morpheus, yeah, Morpheus.
He says, "Do you want this pill or that pill?
Red pill or the blue pill?"
Yeah, and which is the one that keeps you in the material world?
Yeah, so red, because he says, Neo, have you ever... This scene is like vital to the Matrix. Yeah. So basically, back to the Matrix, just for the overview, for people who haven't seen it. So he gets contacted by they're basically computer hackers, and they've broken into the Matrix, and they're trying to help people come out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a movie. But Morpheus is like the head of the computer hackers, and he ends up getting the main character, Neo, in a room with him. And he says, he says, "Neo, have you ever had a dream that you were so sure that you thought was real? How do you know the difference between the real world and the dream world?" And then he goes on to say, we're living in the dream world, Matrix. Neo, we're living in the dream world. It's time to wake up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's up to you, though. You got the choice. And I remember when I first heard that scene, it was a long time before. I think it was like maybe 6 months before I actually got the Bhagavad Gita. And I was in university, and I was sitting there, and it really struck me, like this sense of, it feels... How would I know if this dream is real, if this world is a dream, or my life is real or not? I don't know, and I want to know,
Yeah.
So Morpheus gives him an option. He says, "Do you want the red pill, which will show you the reality, it will show you the truth of the matter? It might be scary, but it's here, it's an option. Or you could take the blue pill, and you'll wake up tomorrow and forget this conversation ever happened and go back to living in that sort of dream world."
Yeah. So these chapters are the red pill.
Yeah.
This by hearing that this is Krishna trying to help us understand the material world, or even our own bodies, and by understanding this, you're taking the red pill. If you want to take the blue pill, you're better off switching off now. Yeah. But so shall we go in? So Krishna says, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. One who knows this body is called the knower of the field."
Yeah. And there's like this body is called the field, and one who knows the body is the knower of the field. So he's putting this difference between the body and then the person observing through the body, isn't it?
Yeah, like you said before, there's a difference between the body and the soul. There's an
Yeah.
observed and an observer.
Exactly.
And what is observed is always different from the observer. So, okay, I must be different from my body. Do you want to just briefly explain what the field is then? Because it's quite an interesting word. Sanskrit is kshetra. So it's like, so you're a conscious being and you have a field. What's this field?
Yeah, there's like loads of different explanations. So like I've got one on the screen that's saying that the body is a field for the living entity. And the living entity is like a farmer who's working on growing different bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite of like an esoteric answer to that. But the idea is that we have this body.
Say it again.
So the body is a field for the living entity.
Uh-huh.
The living entity is the knower of the field. And the living entity is like a farmer who's growing different bodies. So this goes into like karma and reincarnation.
Oh, I see.
So this is one angle to take it.
For those of you who can't see at home, I'm looking at a picture here on the
field.
computer of a field, yeah. Maybe Actor Rupert can put it up on the screen so you don't feel like you're missing out.
So like according to the seeds that a living entity has planted in his particular field, then happiness or distress grow according to his past actions.
Yeah.
So this is like karma. So according to the way we're acting, we're planting seeds, and that's dictating where our body's going.
So that's one way to look at it. You're saying so it's like a field that as a living entity, like our own, like you have a garden, so you're choosing what sort of plants to cultivate and to grow. So similarly in life, every deed, action, or things we cultivate eventually manifest to shape our field. So
our field, and then that would take us back to the like what you'd think of when you were trying to explain the field. The field of activities is this physical body that we can use to interact with the world. Because I always thought that I always read the Bhagavad Gita. I might be wrong as well. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I always thought the field of activity was like the environment that we live in, and the body was separate from the field of activity. But actually, the body is the field of activity, and we use it to observe kind of an objective environment. So we see according to our field. So we see according to the body that we have particularly. I don't know if I'm explaining that.
I mean, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says the field of activity is the body. Maybe you should have read this purport.
Yeah, I got it up here as well.
And what is the body? The body is made of senses.
Yes.
So that basically, if you think about it, your body, you're just a bag of senses. You know, there's blood, stool, pus, bone, and then it's in this bag of skin with some muscle. It's in a bag of skin with some holes in it that are senses. And then you put a moustache on it and a hair, and you think, oh, this is what an attractive person,
Yeah.
But it's the soul that makes things attractive. So Prabhupada's saying that the body means senses, and everyone's got a different set of senses that are grouped about the mind. Even like a dog, a cat, depending on your karma, then you get a different field with a different set of senses.
Yeah, and I guess it's important to understand there's a difference between that set of senses and the living entity who's experiencing through them. Yeah. Because you could have a field of activities, like you could have, because you think of a pigeon, a squirrel, a dog, a hamster, an elephant, a monkey, name any animals, they've all got eyes, right? So they're all viewing this world. Like they've all got senses which are used to gather data and interact with this world. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, so there's a knower within that field, but whilst that living entity has that specific type of body, then it identifies with that body,
Yeah, like you said something earlier about the park. I'm looking for a slide.
Yeah. It's quite a big slideshow. But yeah, so it's like here it is. So the field of activities can be compared to a playground in a backyard that's surrounded by a big fence. So the child that's playing there has the freedom to play as he wishes, but he can't extend his activities beyond the allotted field. So he can't go beyond his fence. So in other words, I don't know if you want to explain that or.
No, crack on.
Like, so we're within this body, and this body is like it binds us. It's like a fence. It's fenced off.
Because the reason I was thinking of this is because you were saying different bodies. So even though the living entity as the soul is the same in quality, depending on our body or our field of activities, we experience the world in a different way. And this leads and now you're using the example of a child in a playground. So the playground is like our field, and the child is the soul.
Yeah, and we're able to enjoy according to our senses. So if you cut my tongue out, then I know that would hurt. You cut my tongue out, I would no longer be able to enjoy the sense of taste, because my field would be shut off for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like similarly, like someone may have a playground with like a slide and a swing and everything. Some other kid might just have like a concrete, like just nothing. There's nothing there. It's just an empty. It's just a fenced off area. So like similarly, like you may have a body that's like a pig that enjoys just eating poop and rolling around in the mud, and that's all. That's the capacity of your playground. Or you might be like a rich kid with like a really beautiful back garden with like a roller coaster, a Ferris wheel. You could have the whole thing, and you could enjoy according to that. And so a wealthy child may possess many nice toys and a large garden in which to play, but still he's restricted by that fence. And you might become proud of his ability to enjoy within the scope of his playground, but he is still restricted by the fence. So he's absorbed in his insignificant backyard and knows nothing of life beyond the fence. You know, so you got many people that are like enjoying on a decently high level on earth. You know, they've got money, they've got cars, and they go fishing and they fly planes or whatever they're doing, and they get proud of that because they're so absorbed within their little playground. They can't understand that there's actually something beyond the fence. It's interesting points. So like
yeah, I think that's because that I think that quite nicely describes the kshetra.
Yeah.
So that's the field.
So the senses.
It's your body and your basically field of activity. What you can. Everyone's got a different set, and then so the knower of the field is the conscious living entity. That's you. Like you know your field. Like if I pinch myself, I'll feel pain. If I pinch you, I won't feel that.
Yeah.
And then so just before we go on to the modes, another important point is Krishna says that there is another knower of the field.
Yeah.
One is the knower of the individual field, so I'm aware of my field, you're aware of yours, and you at home are aware of your own field.
Yeah.
There's another kshetrajna, another knower, who is aware simultaneously of everyone's fields. You at home, me, and you, and everyone else.
Yeah, and I've heard like a nice description. It's like a farmer in a giant kingdom. He knows what's going on with
farmer.
Like a farmer with a field.
Okay.
In a kingdom, and he plants his crops, and he knows what's going on in his individual field.
I see.
But the king of the kingdom, he knows what's going on in that farmer's field, but he also knows what's happening in every other field within his kingdom. You know what I mean? So it's a bit like that. So we know what's happening in our individual body, but there's another knower that knows what's happening in every single body, and that's the super soul, the Paramatma.
And then he says, to understand this body and its knower, that is real knowledge, Krishna explains. And this is in the start of the 13th chapter. Then he goes further into that. I'm just thinking, because then Krishna starts talking about this Paramatma, or this super soul. That's a manifestation of the Supreme in the material world that's simultaneously conscious of everything and is feeding intelligence and memory to the living entities. It's
quite a massive topic. Like we're probably just gonna have to swoop over it, but like the idea that God is expanded into everyone's heart and is witnessing through everyone's body and is aware of everyone's thoughts. It's like this feature of Krishna that's expanded. It's like an expansion of Krishna that's there for him to be able to allow this world to work in an organized way. Like it's his method of perceiving. Do you know? Yeah.
It what facilitates everything happening. So I think it's all done by the medium of Paramatma, or Krishna's energies. You know, like I can want to move my hand up in the air. I have some control of my body, but if I get paralysis, then I can't. So there's a I mean, again, it goes, maybe we shouldn't go into it too much, but there's always been this philosophical thought that, okay, if you have spirit and you have matter, if spirit is completely above matter, and then how does the two interact? You know, how does the spirit interact with matter if they're just two incompatible energies? Like, like, I don't know, oil and water, they'll just naturally separate, right? So this, philosophically, this is the answer, is done by the medium of Paramatma, or the medium of that entity which is actually the controller of both energies.
It like facilitates the integration of the soul within the physicality of the body. But I just said words there. But that's kind of like an overview of the field and the know the field.
When will this camera turn off now?
In like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Our camera on the previous episode we lost the video halfway through just because the camera.
Do you want to move it now before we go into the next topic?
I just wanted to.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, we have talked about this.
Yeah, I just wanted to like tie it together because it's a very nice. I wanted to tie it together because it's a really nice purport.
Okay, go on.
From Prabhupada. So we talked about how the field can be like this place where we're sort of growing our new bodies, like that, based on our actions, on our karma. So the living entity is limited by the interactions of his body, mind, and karma, which constitute his field.
Say that again, slower.
The living entity is limited by the interactions of his body, mind, and karma, which constitutes his field of activities. So, so we're bound within this body, within this mind, and we can only act according to our karmic capacity. So if you do good things, you get like good credits. If you do bad things, you get bad credits. And we only have a certain amount of credits in the bank account that we can spend for our enjoyment. That's why some people, they can never make a break because they haven't got the karmic facility in one sense. But this is the idea. In the 15th chapter, Krishna says that the living entity thus takes another gross body. This is 15.9. He takes another gross body, another physical body, and obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind, and thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So our mind is like the center of our senses. So if you think of it like a computer, you've got all of these inputs going into like the motherboard, I guess. And there's some sort of computation going on in the motherboard, and then it causes outputs to happen. So like the mind is like the sort of middle point between the consciousness and the senses, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And according to our sort of the way we live our life, we get a certain type of nose, a certain type of tongue, a certain type of eye, and that dictates. So in the purport to 15.9, Prabhupada, he writes, consciousness is originally pure like water. But if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When, therefore, one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he'll get a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, a dog, a hog, a demigod, or any of the other or one of many other forms, for there are 8,400,000 species. So it's just this point that consciousness is originally pure. It's spiritual, yeah. But when it comes in contact with the material energy, then it changes. It becomes contaminated. So contaminated means something that's been made impure by exposure to an additional polluting substance, kind of like that. So like this is getting into the modes of nature then, because we become polluted by chapter 14. Krishna starts talking about the modes, which is a huge topic, and understanding the modes is like the first step of of getting out of the matrix, isn't it? Krishna says that too.
Yeah, he says that to understand the modes, we understand how they act, how they bind, but also how they can free us. So this is we've done like different tables on it, or there's so much there that it really is yoga lifestyle management. I mean, the modes of nature is so important, not just for spiritual life, but even to help with your body, your health, your mental health, your environment, the way you act. Krishna, he gives different prescriptions of how to act in sattva gun, which is the way to live that's most conducive for spiritual life, and also produces happiness, health. Then he also gives symptoms of the lower modes. Tamagun is like the mode of darkness, and by cultivating that, which a lot of us cultivate without even thinking of it, you get depression, madness. Rajagun, which is passion, so just work, I'm just looking for a result. So he symptomizes these modes of nature so we can point it out in our own life. But the important thing is that he's also highlighting that you have a choice. You have a control and a choice about which mode you want to be in, how you want to structure your life, and how you want to perform different activities. And Krishna's encouraging, if you always choose the mode of goodness, or if you're in ignorance, at least passion, if you always work your way up, then your life will flourish and you'll find spiritual life much easier.
Yeah. So, because it's like a really interesting topic, the modes. Like it's described that these modes of nature, these three modes that you just described, goodness, passion, and ignorance, they're all pervading through this world. So it's like, like when you have cloth, it's got threads going left and top to bottom, and threads going left to right, and that's called like the waft and the weft of the thread. You heard that word?
No.
Waft and weft. So like cloth, like is just like weight, like bits of thread that's weaved to make it like a sheet. But the modes are like that, but in all directions, like 360, all directions. It's just completely all pervasive. So there's goodness, which is like known as a force, which is to do with like maintenance, isn't it? Like keeping things in sync, in limbo, like not limbo.
Yeah, keep your things in order, looking after something. Like if passion is creation, isn't it? So it's easy to create something. It's easier it's harder to create something than to destroy something.
Yeah. So ignorance is destruction.
Yeah, and then but the hardest or the most pure is to maintain something. To keep it, look after something, keep it maintained, keep it alive. So I think, and
you can see that our modern society is going away from the mode of goodness, and you can just see it in the way that our products are designed. So like a phone is designed, it's got like planned obsolescence within it, so it's designed to break over time, and you're not supposed to fix that phone or repair it. It's just you throw it away and get a new one. So that's creation. It's easier for the phone companies to just keep creating more phones or keep creating new stuff. So it's very passionate, very driven.
Srila Prabhupada said the standard of today's society is the mode of passion,
which is creation. But ultimately, Krishna then he does explain that all passion ends with
there's other symptoms of passion other than just creation. For example, unlimited desires, hankerings, they never get fulfilled. The mode of goodness is characterized by satisfaction. So these things are important to, like, you'll see it when you start to really understand these modes, and it does take a while to get your head around it. Then it's undeniable how it works. And those who are practicing spiritual life, like for myself now, if I want to perform my spiritual practices, like chant on my beads or read, I'll find it difficult to do it in an atmosphere that's in the mode of ignorance or is messy. If our atmosphere is messy, then it'll have a certain effect on our consciousness, for example. And we'll start to develop the qualities that Krishna describes are in the mode of ignorance. We'll start to feel
anger,
lethargic, maybe a bit depressed. But then if we decide, no, I'm going to do something about this mode of ignorance, I'm going to tidy the place, I'm going to make it clean, then we start to cultivate mode of goodness. So then we start to feel a bit more happy, peaceful, our mind becomes more clear.
Yeah. It's amazing. And once you start to see the world in this way, it's so palpable. Like, it's so real. Like because you get conditioned by your environment. Like we said, it's wafted and wafted. It's everywhere. So if you clean your room, then being in a clean room, like, almost conditions your mind to be in a more mode of goodness, sattvic kind of way.
Yeah, and you can tell there's how people are affected by the modes. Like someone who like I meet a lot of people, and you can tell if they're dirty, if they haven't
a bit depressed,
bathed, but they also give this like energy of like tamagun,
darkness,
and you can tell it's affecting them. It's and it'll have effect on other people. So similarly, if you see someone who's very much in the mode of passion, then they'll always want
results like
they might be a bit of a workaholic, or they're always looking for the next thing but never satisfied, always hungry for more and more. And then when you meet someone in the mode of goodness, which is rare these days, they're much more peaceful. They're detached but still determined. They have knowledge also. Knowledge is a symptom of the mode of goodness.
It's like dark tamagun. Ignorance is dark. But it's because I always find that on the street it's very interesting. People say, oh, you guys are always really peaceful, because as part of spiritual life you naturally practice cleanliness and like sattvic kind of living.
I didn't realize it at first. When I first became a Hare Krishna, I went into the ashram, and there's a certain lifestyle, there's certain things that we do, like, okay, you got to get up in the morning, you got to like in the early hours in the mornings, a mode of goodness time. Like there's parts of the day which different modes are prominent. And I started to really, our diet was, something that, you don't eat dead things or putrid things. Ideally you eat fresh vegetables, for example. And I started my whole life, and the others will see your purity. Like I became much more clear in my head. Other people could witness that my demeanor had changed. So that was all a result of just changing my lifestyle to something that was more in mode of goodness, rather than previously I'd been living in mode of ignorance. For example, intoxication is another symptom of the mode of ignorance. If one takes intoxication, then you're unwittingly cultivating the mode of ignorance, and that will have an effect on your consciousness.
And it's interesting because it is like creating loops. Like we have a lot in our life. We do an activity, and we tend to get into habits and repeat those habits. So if you get into something like an addictive cycle, then you're conditioning yourself with that lower mode, and like you might be drunk and you might not wash as much, and then you might have a messy room, and then you might drink now to forget about that, and you go in this kind of negative spiral. You see it happen to people, like they sort of condition themselves down. But this is the key point from the Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna is saying you can actually also condition yourself up. So he's saying, like, by practicing things that are in the mode of goodness, by being clean, by spending time in nature, by doing things which are more sattvic, because it's also described that like nature is goodness, mode of goodness. The city is very passionate, mode of passion, trying to get things done. And places like pubs or brothels or strip clubs or gambling houses, these are mode of ignorance places. Do you know what I mean? So like by facilitating, by putting our field in an environment of goodness, then we're already planting seeds for our field of activities, going back to that, for the way that we perceive this world to be more mode of goodness. And then it's described that all the senses are illuminated with knowledge. So in other words, you see things as they are, you hear things as they are, you smell things as they are, you taste things as they are. Whereas when we're conditioned by these more lower modes, we tend to misinterpret the environment. Like I know personally because it comes over me in waves, these lower modes, like, and I can feel it like, oh, I feel very dark at the moment. Like I just feel like, and people say stuff to me and I react in the wrong way, and it causes situations that I don't even want to happen. Because I'm not seeing things as they are, I'm seeing through this sort of dark filter. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's the different principles that are prescribed in Bhakti Yoga, as some of you at home might have know already. For example, no eating meat, no intoxication. These are, like I said before, activities in mode of goodness, and like you said, you have a more clear consciousness. So these are like sort of requisites for cognition. So when we change our lifestyle like this, that more easily facilitates spiritual experience. When we give ourselves the opportunity to actually perceive spiritual experience, which is in the more higher modes, like there'll be a mix everywhere. You always have some ignorance, some passion, some goodness. By coming more to the platform of goodness, experiencing more of the spiritual aspect of life, then eventually, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the point, you transcend the modes of nature. You transcend the whole material tabernacle. And then when one's completely pure, then they're not entangled by any of the modes. They're not swayed by the passion and ignorance of this world. So the modes is like, if you can see them, study it's talked about in this 14th chapter. I think it's talked about again in the 18th chapter.
Yeah, 17th as well. 17th. There's a lot of it in the 17th.
So by understanding these things, it's like a ladder. I'll go from ignorance, then to passion, then to goodness.
And you'll start to see it. You'll start to see these modes everywhere. It's really, it becomes clear, It's actually just a side. Like when we first started the Food for Life project this time last year, we were distributing a lot of flyers to houses to offer people delivery meals during the COVID pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I was part of the team of boys that we went out and just delivered flyers every day for like a month. Mm-hmm. I think I distributed like 30,000 flyers. So like 30,000 different houses. And you could really see, it's not like, I'm not trying to big myself out, I'm just saying like about the stop it. They're like different modes of nature in different neighborhoods. Like, so you could literally go up one street and it was very clean. All of the plants were in order, like very nice, very like looked after. And then you go down another neighborhood and it smells like sewage and there's like dirt, and like you can see how these modes are all pervasive, and you can see how different areas are influenced predominantly by different modes, Mm-hmm. And for me that was like a real tangible way to like meditation on, okay, that you can see these modes are actually acting, and it's like because say if you're in a mode of goodness, things that aren't mode of goodness will stand out to you. So like it's like there's a reaction that happens, so if someone's really ignorant, it's like it doesn't sit well. But if you're in the mode of ignorance, like if you're around ignorant people, you feel comfortable, you're like, okay. But if you're around goodness people and passionate people, it might make you feel bad, or so
like someone in goodness will not be able to tolerate sitting somewhere that's in ignorance, and they will be disturbed by someone that's in passion. Someone in mode of passion might get frustrated with an atmosphere that's in the mode of goodness. So that's the idea, is that like naturally we want to be surrounded by the mode that we're most predominantly conditioned by. So you notice that there's these pockets within Cardiff, within the city, where the mode of ignorance will congregate, and there'll be a whole street or a whole area where people that are conditioned by the mode of ignorance come together, and they don't feel uncomfortable there. And similarly, there's more passionate places like this. Generally, mode of goodness, it is attractive. Like a lot of people say, I'd like to live in I'd love to live in the country with a beautiful garden.
Simple,
But the thing, like I visited my brother's father-in-law and mother-in-law, and they had this beautiful garden, but it takes work to maintain that garden. That's in the mode of goodness. Like it takes effort to be there. And even though that I found that very attractive, when it comes to gardening, I'd probably be a bit more in the mode of ignorance. So I wouldn't maintain that garden. Yeah. And because of myself being in the mode of ignorance, then the garden would start to, generally places in nature are in the mode of goodness anyway. But it would start to, things would overgrown. And as far as a nice garden is concerned, it would manifest tamagun. So like if you took a bunch of people who, intoxicants, drug addicts, thieves, people in the mode of ignorance, if you put them somewhere that was really nice, then they would change their atmosphere. They'd start to leave rubbish everywhere. They'd start to... So you create your own atmosphere. And this is what Krishna's trying to say in the modes of material nature. He's trying to help us to come up to a higher standard of life.
Yeah. No, it's interesting stuff. And if you've got any questions about this kind of thing, you can definitely shoot a message over or come to Atma and ask people. Because
we've also got a chart as well. Like we've got a chart by which you can measure different activities of your day.
So how do I sleep? How do I eat? How do I wash?
And try and manage your lifestyle to become more sattvic. And then this is what we'll see firsthand what Krishna's talking about in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very practical book. And just give it a chance, put it into practice, and you'll see the results.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you next time.
So we'll have one more on the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. I hope those of you doing the course are enjoying your classes. I hope we've said something of some value.
Well, if you've listened this far, well done.
Yeah.
Because you're
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda